obviously earth-shaking news
Yes.
coming out of the Pentagon on 60 Minutes this last week. Matt's been covering the story since long before 60 Minutes got in on the action. There are unidentified aerial phenomena being observed by United States military aircraft. Apparently, it's happening with some frequency. Our former Senate Majority Leader, the Right Honorable Harry Reid, and that's how you know it's true. The Right Honorable Harry Reid became very concerned about this, and because of him and others in the government, a task force was formed within the Pentagon to track these unidentified aerial phenomena, or as you may know them, unidentified flying objects.
Objet. Yeah.
And now we're starting to see a lot of gun cam footage, a lot of sensor footage, a lot of radar footage coming from military aircraft, primarily F-18s, things that are flying over the water. And the question I have for the panel is,
Right, look at that. Come on.
are we alone or are geese just getting super fast? I mean, like, fast.
Could I just to open this up? I believe I'm the only alien-believing American on the panel tonight. Okay, so you haven't committed yet, but I am the representative of our people and culture. And I do feel marginalized and frankly unsafe sometimes in this workspace. But so I think there are two things here. Okay, first of all, obviously we don't know exactly what that is or what those things are. And in order to come up with any kind of like probability that it's aliens, we need some background information that we don't have. Like, for example, we need to know, are there aliens in the universe? And how many such civilizations are there? And where are they? And what sort of technology do they have? We don't know any of that. But what that tells us, first of all, is that you can't just you can't basically rule out as a possibility or even as a plausible possibility that those are aliens. Because for all we know, now, if we're the only intelligent civilization, even just in the galaxy, then that's definitely not an alien. But if there's intelligent civilizations in all of our surrounding solar systems, let's just say, or in some of the nearest ones, then the probability goes up. So we don't know that at all. So we kind of have to put that to the side, and then we just look at that. And now we have to say to ourselves,
What the hell is that?
Yeah, but we've been hearing these UFO reports for a long time, for decades, really. And I think the objection that a lot of people had, including myself, is that we said, well, if there were actual UFOs, like alien spaceships in the sky, then we should get better evidence than, why is it always a farmer in Kansas that sees them? It's kind of like Bigfoot. You know, the only person that sees Bigfoot is someone who has a camera from like the battlefield reporter at Antietam had. You know, so why is that always the case with aliens? And that was always my objection until in the last few years, we're getting trained observers up close. There were 4 Navy pilots who observed one of these things up close. 4 of them. For 5 minutes they watched it. And corroborating their testimony, we have radar data and video of that one thing, this tic-tac shaped thing that was flying around, breaking the speed of sound and doing things that seem physically impossible. So that's exactly the kind of evidence that for decades we said, well, if they were really UFOs, we should have that evidence. Now it's here. And so I feel like that should at least get us to reassess our original
Mickey,
assumption.
I hate to pour water on this, okay? I've got a couple other theories beyond the Martians. One is that this is foreign technology. Now you say, we've never seen technology like this. Right, I said it's foreign technology. Now, there's another possibility. Maybe it's our own technology. But Michael, you say, the government says that it's not. I know the government would never lie to you. I know the government's always totally above board. But maybe it is our technology. Maybe this whole PR campaign is a bit of a fake out to our adversaries. But let's say it's not. Let's say we have no clue what that is up in the sky. Do the aliens exist on other planets? Is there intelligent life? I'll go even further. Is there life at all on other planets? The one argument that drives me the craziest is this one. They say, Michael, it's just probable. It's just probability. The universe is a gazillion light years across. It's so big. So it's just probable that there is life somewhere else. And I say, to ascertain a probability, you need to know literally anything about the subject that you're talking about. And when it comes to the origins of life, there are actually, 6 or 7 main hypotheses. There's the Miller-Urey hypothesis of the primordial soup. This was in the 50s, but the experiment didn't work out that well because they didn't have the right chemicals. Then there was the clay hypothesis, that there are actually these crystal structures within clay that could form the basis of sort of organizing genetic information, but there's really no way to describe how it goes from that to nucleotides, right? So that kind of fell apart. Then there's the idea that it was actually formed formed in the sub-oceanic vents. Then there's an idea that it was actually the opposite. It was formed underneath frozen oceans. Then there's this idea that it came here from Martians, from outer space, which only pushes the question off and says, well, how the hell did life form there? My point is, in modernity, we're told we're not special. Look, there's probably a zillion other of us. And my only point is, maybe that's true, but we have no evidence. We have no reason to believe that we're not special.
This is my whole approach to this. Is, the philosopher Wittgenstein, who may have been an alien, said, of that which we cannot speak, we must remain silent. And the philosopher Klavan says, that which we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, the arguments against the aliens always take the form of, well, would aliens do this or would aliens do that? How the hell do we know? Yeah. First of all, if anybody who has the technology to send actual objects across the galaxy to us is in another sphere than we are, the things that they do may seem illogical to us and may be logical, but even more so, they may be stupid. They may be incredibly technological proficient and stupid. We can build phones.
So like teenagers.
We can exactly. Right. We can build phones where we can talk across the planet, and we still elected AOC to Congress. You can do incredibly stupid things. So they may be coming down here with these Tic Tacs from outer space and building little rock statues, and you say, well, would they do that? How the hell do we know? So all I would say is we now have information, this is where I agree with Walsh. We now have information which we said nobody had. And all the people who were conspiracy theories, and it was zone, whatever it was, 50, what is it, 2 in Nevada?
Area 51.
Area 51. We now have these pictures of things that are really interesting, really different, worth stopping for a minute and saying, gee, what is that? And the point you make is actually really important. We don't know how life began. We don't know whether we are, in fact, this special thing that happened on this one planet, or if this is something that would happen on any planet near, equally distant from a star.
I read your piece that you wrote, which I found incredibly offensive and hateful, where you said, there's no reason to believe that aliens exist, right?
Yes.
That was
that's the headline.
But you could easily flip that around and say there's absolutely no reason to believe they don't exist. When you live in a universe with trillions and trillions and trillions of planets, and we have visited none of them, and we've sent probes to a few, but we've actually visited none of them. To sit here and it seems to me it is a probability thing.
Well, this is my problem. My issue.
Hold on a second. It's like walking in. To me, it's like walking into a 50-bedroom mansion. And you get to the foyer and you don't see anybody there, and you say, "Well, I guess the place is empty." It doesn't make any sense.
Somebody had to build the mansion, and that person who built the mansion would be a person, right? But we have some idea of how the person got. Someone got there. He probably took a car. I don't know. You look for the car. We have no clue how life. We don't have any idea. There are going to be a lot of people in the comments.
But we do know.
How?
Well, you and I, we all know how life started. We don't know the exact.
Man formed Adam out of clay.
Right. We know God created it. I mean, that might seem like a shortcut, but we all know that. So I actually think when you introduce God into the equation, which of course you can't take him out. A lot of believers think that this is a challenge to their faith, and it just doesn't make any sense. How can you have intelligent civilizations? Well, I actually think that when you factor in God, which again you must, it makes the probability higher because then there's a purpose. There's a purpose element. Like
are the aliens fallen?
Well, I don't know that. But
mustn't they not be fallen?
Why?
For Christianity?
I don't know why. I don't know the answer to that, but all I know is that there's a purpose for all these billions of galaxies.
Well, here's why. Because the Christian idea is that there's a Godhead, it's Trinity, Father, Son, and the bond of love between the Father and Son, which is the Holy Spirit. The Son saves mankind by taking on human nature and dies on the cross and is resurrected 3 days later, right? Ascends up into heaven, seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. So he's fully human and fully God. And also fully Martian?
We don't even know whether Martians are exactly like us or not.
The main thing is,
are they human?
I really want to.
I don't know any of this.
I'm trying to filibuster Ben because I know he has a good argument. I don't want him to
It's
jump
not that
in.
great. I mean,
Okay, go ahead.
okay. So here's my not that great argument. So I agree with what you are saying, and it's a burden of proof question. Obviously, is the burden of proof on the people who are trying to provide the idea that aliens exist, or is the burden of proof on the people who are saying that aliens don't exist? But that doesn't change the balance of the evidence, which is that we have no idea, right? And so we're all saying the same thing. We have no idea.
Right.
Do aliens exist or do aliens not exist? What I think is that the likelihood that aliens not only exist, but have been floating around the planet in what seem to be bizarrely bird-like shapes and also are behaving in ways that seem to
Here we go.
conflate with, and also seem to conflate with optical illusions that we have seen before, suggests to me that because human beings have a very long time of
When have you ever
describing
seen a Tic Tac bird? Tell me that.
And
Where
Where
they're
did
kind of far
Tic Tacs
away.
come from? Then I ask.
Also, I mean, it could be very far away. That doesn't look like amazing pixelation. It's not like right up on it. Like, like I don't know, but it doesn't seem to me that the most plausible explanation for that.
4 people saw the Tic Tac.
but this reminds me.
And,
this reminds me
from far away, it might look like a Tic Tac. I mean, like just because things refract off surfaces of clouds differently.
Can I speak
Like David
to
Blaine also isn't cutting coins out of his arm. Like, like
whoa.
illusion. Like
The skepticism.
it's
on this
illusion, Michael.
panel.
Illusion. Like it's
On this panel. Here's my position on it. The burden of proof is on people who want to say that there are
Yes.
aliens,
Yes.
not on people who say that there aren't. The burden of proof is never on a person who is maintaining the status quo or who is maintaining what we know.
Oh, I don't
The
agree with
idea,
that.
the idea
agree
of
with that
aliens,
principle.
the idea of aliens is a novel concept rooted in fiction. The fact that this is even in our minds is a possibility. When we see something moving across that screen, the only reason we even ask ourselves, is that extraterrestrial life? 200 years ago, you could have seen it in the sky, and your thought wouldn't have been, is that extraterrestrial life? Because that idea had not been broadly introduced into the American psyche. We have a frame of reference now, largely programmed in us by fiction, that causes us to see certain things and judge them according to that frame of reference. What is the Tic Tac? I don't know. What I know is that our government is testing technology decades before we know about that technology. The first time we ever saw an F-117 stealth fighter, it was almost 20 years old before Americans even knew that that existed. It had been not only in existence, it had been flying around our country nonstop. There's a reason that the pilots you're referring to keep seeing these things in restricted airspace. Why in restricted airspace?
Yeah.
Why is that airspace restricted? Because that's where we test things. That's where our government goes to test things.
Yeah.
Also, we keep trying to figure out what is the thing, but there are so many examples of you can't paint with a broad brush. Some of it may not even exist. You may be looking at something on one of these cameras, and that something is nothing. It's not a goose. It's not a Tic Tac bird that do exist. It's not a weather balloon. It's literally a nothing because these airplanes, their sensory mechanisms are programmatic. They're so software driven now, and we're constantly updating and refining that software. It could literally be tracking something that doesn't even exist because of an update that happened to the firmware. It could be foreign governments hacking our systems to show us things that aren't there. It could be foreign governments testing technology. I think that's actually unlikely. I think it's far more likely that it would be us testing technology.
Yeah.
It could be hackers in some basement in Tuscaloosa hacking our equipment.
But of all those theories, the least likely
The
is that it
least
is
likely
something
is that it is
from another
extraterrestrial
planet.
life.
The reason I don't agree with it
Because
I don't
we
agree
know
with
all
the
those
premise.
other things
No,
exist
you know,
that you
this
just
is like-
said.
This is like ghosts. You know, whenever I have more than 10 people in a room, I always ask, has anybody seen a ghost? Always, never fails. Somebody has seen a ghost. Some sane, rational person has had an experience that's
First of all, it's a super
inexplicable.
weird dinner question.
It's not.
But you
Yeah,
do get a yes answer.
because it's been true through history. It's been true through history. The reason we don't believe in ghosts is because we don't believe in ghosts. That doesn't mean that the burden of proof is on somebody who does believe in ghosts. I mean, more people have seen ghosts through history, than have seen Brazil. I mean, so there's plenty of reason to believe in ghosts. You know, and I think the same thing is true here. The fiction that you're talking about is extrapolative fiction. It's people extrapolating from life on Earth to life on other planets. That's not illogical. That's
you
not
believe in
like
ghosts?
what?
Do you believe in ghosts?
I'm actually unsure what I believe.
But let's hold
I mean,
on.
all I can say,
Sure,
As long as we're going here, we're going to go full Art Bell
but
here.
I don't want to get off on ghosts. You can't say that what I just said, which is that the least likely of all of those options is that it's extraterrestrial life. You can't say that I'm wrong about that. Of course, the least likely explanation is that it's
No,
extraterrestrial
I
life.
think
Definitionally, not just by a little, it's not 5% less likely that it's a software glitch than that it's extraterrestrial life. It's not even 100% less likely that it's a software glitch than extraterrestrial life. Definitionally, what I'm saying is true.
because what
I am saying
Knowles
something
what Knowles is saying
definitionally
no what Knowles is saying about probability is only a half truth, right? It's true.
I only.
But it could
You
be,
only
That's
deal-
all I do.
Hold on. Drew, based on what you're saying right now, it could be a time machine.
Well,
It's,
and it
it's
could
at
be.
least equally, I would say it's even more likely that it's a time machine.
No,
because,
no, I don't agree with that.
But it's at least as likely that it's a time
actually
machine.
is
No, the
than
thing
it's
is-
an alien.
the-
It's far more
The
likely
thing
that
that Knowles
it's
is
a
saying, the
sunspot
thing that
than
Knowles
either.
is saying about probability is right in the sense that we have no idea. We have no idea how to calculate the probability.
And that's why we need to know. That's what I'm saying. You
but
can't
there's a
talk about
theory.
No,
probability.
this
There
is
is a
not-
theory.
this is not true.
But
I'm
there
just
is a
gonna- I'm
theory.
gonna-
But there is
hold
a
on.
theory
This
under
is
which
not- this
it's
is not
probable that
true.
there's life
This
on
is not true. The probability of seeing something and not understanding what it is, every human has that happen all the time.
that I
the
agree with,
theory
yeah.
that a software glitch happens in
No, my
military hardware that's being updated happens all the time. It is far more likely, and I'm saying you can't paint with a broad brush about this. I'm not even saying there aren't aliens. I'm not saying we didn't see an alien. If we saw an alien, it's one single instance of these things. This is another thing when we talk about are they aliens? Every one of them's different. If we had 50 pilots all the time and they were all seeing something that looked exactly the same,
Billboard.
you'd
Well, they
go,
said
Can I
that
just, can I
for a
just,
period
can I
of
just say
time
one
they were
thing? Can I just say
saying-
one thing? I don't. I'm not saying the alien is the most likely explanation.
Sure.
For example, there could be civilizations under the ocean, and that
You make a good point.
But hold on a second.
that is at least as likely.
it's
or more. That's actually more likely.
The alien is not the most likely. I also don't think it's
More likely.
it's not necessarily the least
know there's
likely.
life here.
We have, like you said, we have to look at each individual case. So the Tic Tac, for example, I would say that the alien is more likely than the seagull. Okay, because I have never seen a seagull that can go the speed of sound and that doesn't have wings.
Never
and
been to
I-
Atlantic City. Gotta go to Atlantic City.
So I would say that. So like I would put it above some other options. I do think it's not the most likely, but it's a plausible. Here's what I would say: it's a plausible explanation, and it's more plausible. It should be judged more plausible today than we would have 50 years ago,
I don't
given that
believe
the
there's
evidence has.
any reason to say that it's a plausible
You know,
explanation. It is certainly, because definitionally it is true, that it is possible. It is a thing that could be. But Occam's razor tells us that the vast majority, the most likely, it is far more likely that it is something known than that it is something unknown.
But this,
There are
That's-
the thing,
that's
the thing
bullshit.
about the not, the
and it
thing
turns
about
out that
not
those are
knowing,
just things living in
the thing about not
law.
knowing.
That's it. I
No, but
mean,
the thing about not knowing is that you really don't know. Just to go back to Knowles' point
But not all
about
things that you
probability.
don't know are
No,
equally
wait,
probable.
wait. Just let's go back to Knowles' point about probability. It is genuinely true that we don't know how life began, and we don't know how special it is on Earth, and so we have no way of calculating the probability. But if you start with a theory that things happen physically basically the same way, then it's very probable that there's life on other planets. It's also probable that some of it is more advanced than ours. And it could be here. Because we don't know, we literally don't know. We don't know how probable.
But well, hold on. But what is the
we
probability?
don't know how
Hold-
probable. When you say
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
Well,
probable,
I agree
here's,
with that.
here's how you could tell.
yes,
Okay,
because we've
what is-
all
what is the
had
proba-
software malfunctions and we haven't all interacted with aliens.
Correct. What is the probability that birds exist? 100%.
It's 100%.
What is the probability that software
I think they were all replaced by drones.
100%. Right? These are. I mean, there's some people who don't believe that birds exist.
Right.
Yeah.
all I can say
Well,
is that
Well,
aliens are
let's
gonna have
use a
great
less
breath
controversial
with
one.
all those Tic Tacs.
What is the probability that chemtrails and lizard people exist? That's 100%.
That's 100%.
The frogs are
And
making the
no,
frogs,
correct.
yeah.
They literally,
But
they actually are.
this is the thing. Is it possible that there are aliens? I doubt. I think it is possible. I think it is incredibly unlikely. I base this on the fact that we've picked up no radio signals from space. I base this on the possibility that we don't have anything that the best thing that anybody can come up with to tell me that aliens did. Aliens with so much sophistication that they were able to traverse interstellar space is that they came here a long time ago and stacked rocks on top of rocks in the Sahara. Like, that's crazy. If we had opened Pharaoh's tomb and it had been air conditioned, I would have gone, there is a real possibility that somebody else built this besides slaves in Egypt 4,000 years ago. The very fact that we don't commonly encounter aliens and we do commonly encounter myriad other things that this could be means that the most likely answer to every one of these individual things is that it has an
actually-
So
explanation.
you're saying there's a chance. That's my whole
saying,
argument,
Drew,
really.
I'm also saying, Drew, that it's far more likely that you'll die of a heart attack than that you'll be killed by an alien. You can't say that's not true.
It's far more common that I will have a heart attack. But the thing is, if I'm killed by an alien, then that's a thing, right? All I'm saying is we have no way of calculating the probability.
No, but you do.
Yeah.
I mean,
You do.
It's the same question
You-
as ghosts.
you
Okay,
can say,
there's
okay,
no hard
wait.
evidence that ghosts exist. Right? Okay, so if suddenly
What
you
does
hear a
that even
creak
mean?
and a
Wait,
door
wait,
shut in your
what-
house,
what does that even
what is the
mean?
probability?
Isn't the
does that even
probability
mean,
tied to the
Islam?
number of alien civilizations in the universe? Don't you need to
No,
know
it
that?
isn't. No, you don't.
Well, because if
You don't
there's
need to know
zero,
that.
then
If it's zero, then that would be an answer.
Right.
But we'll never know if it's
Right.
zero.
But if there are
Any
a billion.
above zero, any number above zero actually doesn't factor into our equation at all.
I guess I don't
It
see
actually
how that
doesn't
could be.
factor into our equation because
There are several
when you're
factors
in
to
a
an
when you're in a
alien
747 and you look out the window and you see a 737 going by, is it an alien spacecraft? I mean, it damn well could be.
I once thought it was.
They could
Yeah,
mimic.
I saw a little
They
private
could have
jet.
technology that makes them mimic the look of our technology. But of course, while that is possible, it is the least likely of all the possible. It's more likely that you didn't see anything than that the 737 that you probably saw is an alien spacecraft.
But when you say there's no hard evidence that ghosts exist, all those people, the sane, rational people who have had really convincing experiences, why isn't that evidence?
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
lots of people have experiences of things that don't happen all the time.
That's true, but
I don't think aliens and ghosts
Let me
are
introduce you to a
related.
discussion about
No,
systemic racism, my
I'm
friend.
not talking about aliens and ghosts being related. I'm talking about the probability of things
Yeah.
being true and
Yeah.
what you need to calculate those
But you're not
probabilities.
asking
Look,
what the
look,
probability
you can
that
say-
aliens exist is.
You
You're
can-
asking me what the probability that things being observed on gun cameras by American pilots are aliens.
There's also ways.
That's a different
There is
question.
just
That
on the
requires you to
on-
answer a bunch of probabilistic
Description
questions.
of it was kind of
by the way.
reductive. What?
No, it isn't because it's because even if there were to be alien civilizations, you then have to multiply that by the probability that those alien civilizations are sophisticated enough to
yeah.
build technological spacecraft. Multiplied by the probability that millions of years ago, literally millions of years ago, they launched these spacecraft to reach.
Not necessarily. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what.
Well, if you believe that the laws of physics hold, they're not traveling faster than the speed of light.
But
could have a
these are only
wormhole.
the laws of physics we know.
They could have a wormhole. Okay, now we're just
That's
ready.
a thing.
You know,
Now we're just-
Have you guys
I
never
also
seen
watched
Ancient Aliens?
Interstellar, okay,
Yeah.
and it was cool. But like the probability that things are traveling through wormholes to the United
Well, I
States.
know,
But to
that our
Drew's
pilots can
point,
see-
there is a far greater likelihood.
Unbelievable.
That's how Trump got elected, guys.
There is a far greater likelihood that the ghost of Donald Trump will run in 2024. No, there is a far greater likelihood that ghosts exist because we know people exist. We're fairly certain that souls exist. We're fairly certain, at least I am, that angels and demons exist. So we're like, we can sort of extrapolate from our own understanding of these things. But I don't know that E.T. exists, goodness gracious, and that's why I think it's
And
a
we're
lower
not
probability.
talking about the probability of whether or not life exists. You are a little bit, and I
Yeah.
like your argument.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually talking about the probability
Yeah.
that aliens exist.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the probability that when we see something on radar in an F-18,
Yeah.
that it is
yeah, yeah.
more,
Can I just
that
ask-
it
can I
is
ask a question?
more
When
likely that
pilot
it's
Can I ask a
says-
question?
When a pilot says, "I saw this thing happen and it moved up in a way that I've never seen before," and he's obviously not crazy. Maybe he is crazy, but we don't know that. I mean, and it came up in front of me and then it vanished. I don't know. Maybe he's seen an illusion, but wouldn't.
The other day, I played 3-card Monte with a guy, and the dude totally made me believe.
Can I ask a serious question? Can I ask a serious question? So, would you agree that we would all agree if we know that there's no aliens out there in the universe, then the probability is zero for any of these
Yes.
encounters? If we knew that, let's say, there was one intelligent civilization per galaxy, that still makes 100 billion civilizations, but the chances of crossing a galaxy is very slim. But if we knew, for example, that there was an intelligent civilization in 20 of the 30 nearest stars to us,
Yeah.
would you say that that makes the probability more likely that one of these unexplained situations is
Yes.
alien in order?
But by so fine a margin that it's like saying that buying 2 lottery tickets makes you more likely to win the lottery than buying 1. It is true, as an absolute statement of fact, that you have twice as much of a chance of winning the lottery if you buy 2 tickets. But it is not true by any statistical actual reckoning. You are still overwhelmingly not going to win the lottery. Doesn't mean you won't. Overwhelmingly not going to win the lottery. Your odds have changed only by the most minute of margin. If I knew for a fact that there were aliens, if we had even heard radio transmissions from aliens, even Elon Musk says there's something wrong that the universe is so quiet. He obviously believes in aliens. He says he thinks that there's something that happens that actually destroys civilizations before they can become
Fermi's paradox, I think it's called.
Yeah.
before they can become interstellar travelers, or we would have been aware of them long before we saw them on a gun cam, because we're listening, we're looking, we observe, we watch the sky. Obviously, the things aren't invisible if our pilots are seeing them. In fact, in a funny way,
Our ability to see them actually-
we're capable of making aircraft that can't be seen by these same sensors
Yeah.
that apparently the aliens who can travel interstellar space aren't capable of.
So, how do you
It's
explain?
more likely that America, and I don't think this is what it is either, but it's more likely that we're testing
Yeah.
some sort of drone vehicle that can actually become invisible, that can refract light and cloak itself. I know that's more possible because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
possible, and there are humans, and we're making things all the time.
Yeah.
Can we just use? I just want to go back to the Tic Tac, not TikTok.
I want to go to
the,
TikTok.
the aliens might be on TikTok for sure. Let's use the Tic Tac example because we have their 4 eyewitnesses up close. They observed it for 5 minutes. plus we have radar data, plus we have video of all this same thing. That's really compelling evidence that at least, so we know
something was observed.
Right. It was not a glitch or anything. There was a real thing that was there that they saw. So
that is likely, although still not completely.
So what are your theories on what that thing was?
Well, I wouldn't begin to know what it was. As I said, they could have seen.
It's literally called an unidentified flying object.
There are unidentified flying objects.
This is where we agree. I agree with you completely about this. I have no idea what it was.
But there are far more likely scenarios than that it is extraterrestrial life, which we don't even know exists. Far more likely that these pilots observed some man-made, because we know there are men and they make things, craft operating in restricted zones where we know we test those kinds of crafts, hypersonic missiles that move at speeds we've never seen, drones that are capable of breaking G's that would have killed humans. Unpiloted vehicles can do things that piloted vehicles never could because piloted vehicles kill people if they make certain high-G maneuvers. Testing with speed, testing with shapes, testing with automated control, maybe even testing with electronic hacking, where once we are observed, we're able to send false data to the radar of our enemy to tell them what we're observing. I'm saying that any of those things are possible and more likely than what was observed was a flying Tic Tac UFO, flying Tic Tac full of aliens. Although I will grant you that, like winning the lottery, there is a numeric possibility that they observed extraterrestrial life. But I will also say that it is no more likely that what they observed is an alien than that one of us is an alien. It's no more likely that what they observed is an alien than that there are invisible aliens standing over our shoulders documenting this conversation to figure out how much we know.
Or whether they can subscribe.
Or whether or not they what was
most
promo
importantly,
code.
it's also, we keep forgetting the communications element of this. Yeah. So we've been talking now for our entire lives about how messaging is not accidental. Generally speaking, there are strategies to communication, especially when it's coming from the government. Does no one think it's like a little bit weird that the government and the mainstream media, which is in cahoots with the federal government, is just like all pushing this one story right now? Is that not?
So what you're saying, it's like a distraction, or it's a
very possibly an.
That's more. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but it's more likely than that it's.
I find it very unlikely that the government would use all of a sudden decide to use UFOs as a psyop.
You know what? The only reason I mention it right now is because I realized we've come to almost the end of the show, and I haven't yet once plugged my book, which is about language. It's called Speechless: Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. There we go. There's the bell. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we got at least one in during the.
Yeah.
But I also think it's possibly true. I also think that we're just like the government does this and they
probably
control the messaging.
Buy your book.
Usually when a new thing happens, there's very quickly a bunch of confirmation that the thing has happened. So say, for example, that you're a Native American living, in America before the settlers arrive, and suddenly you see a boat on the water. You've never seen a boat on the water before, right? There's a crazy thing. What is this thing?
Sail.
So you go and you tell all your friends, and your friends are like, that's crazy. That doesn't exist. Nobody's ever had anything like that. Okay, and then the next day the boat arrives on the shore and a bunch of settlers get off and they're like, hey, now you've had some more confirmation. Okay, if the boat just went away, sure, it could have been a boat, but usually that's not how things go. Usually within a fairly short period of time, and we've been talking about, as you say, these UFOs for 50 years, 60 years at this point?
Yeah, they didn't go away. They're here, Ben.
Where's the cascade of information that confirms your belief that they are here?
We're getting the cascade of information right now.
You just ruined your own argument.
No, what is the cascade? Where is the cascade?
all these disparate.
You're like the Native Americans going, there's no ship out there. What is a likelihood?
No, because eventually the ships
from other
and a bunch of settlers get off and then proceed to destroy the place.
What's the worst they could do?
Well, I'll grant you this. If in 10 minutes they get off the pill and then and get pregnant, and if in 10 minutes they get off the pill and they start lecturing to us about communo-anarchism, then I will fully admit that the aliens...
You guys are going to be in trouble when they come.
Solving this as anybody.
Listen, the Jews are in trouble with everyone. I may as well get early on the bandwagon. Everyone hates us anyway. May as well get on board with other civilizations,
Hey, like what you saw? Of course you did. You wouldn't have stayed until the very end if you didn't. Now you can do your part and tap that like button for me. It's sort of like petting the algorithm. You wouldn't not pet a dog, would you? Don't be a dog hater. Press the button.